when I found out I was pregnant with our second, that was something that really hit me but I was just starting to hit my stride with Poppy and with Motherhood and with this podcast and all these things that were bringing me joy. And so now to look forward to my 2025 and not really know what that looks like because having experienced pregnancy before and knowing how much it really impacts me, I kind of felt like all of my 2025 is going to be pregnancy and then the postpartum trenches. And so it was really hard. It was definitely that grief phase for me, for sure.
Welcome back to another episode of Smashed Oranges. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. It really helps us continue building this community and bringing you fresh new episodes every week. And on that note, welcome. It's just Sarah. Welcome back. It's just me and Sarah today. Sarah has kind of a fun announcement.
Yes, we're expecting baby number 2, and it threw us for a bit of a loop. I would not
so
dilly-dally with that information.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So you guys were not expecting to get pregnant as fast as you did?
No. So Poppy is 15 months old, 15 and a half months old. And we always knew that we wanted more kids. And most of my siblings are 2 years apart.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of figured that was a good age gap for us. And that sounded good for me and Josh.
Yeah.
And so by the time Poppy turned 1, I was kind of starting to think about already, like, man, 9 months is a long time. If you think about having to bake a baby. And then it took us a while to get pregnant with Poppy in the first place. So I kind of was thinking, well, maybe it will take us a little bit longer. Who knows? Without, I'll spare you guys the details, but
they were having lots of fun.
lots of fun. I think I was just a little reckless with my period tracking app because by the time, I was like, oh, maybe I should check that this wasn't around like an ovulation window or something. It was a little too late. And so, the waiting game began. So by the time my period was about to start, Josh suggested, he says, why don't we just take a test for fun? I was like, no, like why would we bother? He's like, no, let's just do it. And for context, this is exactly what happened when we got pregnant with Poppy.
Yeah.
So I hadn't missed a cycle yet.
Yeah.
I hadn't really even had symptoms yet. There was some like weird cravings that I didn't usually have. I'm not usually a chip person. I'm usually like a sweets person. And I just like demolished a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And Josh immediately was triggered. He was like, what was that? And he started thinking. And so there was one night where he was supposed to go off for a hockey game. He was going to go play hockey. And he was like, let's just take a test. I was like, oh, okay. And it came back positive, and we were shocked.
This is with Poppy.
Yeah.
Because you guys have been trying for how long when you got pregnant with Poppy?
So we had been like trying, quote unquote, trying for like 6 years.
That's wild.
Yeah. And doctors had always said like, oh, well, you're young. Just like keep doing what you're doing. We were in the midst of getting some testing done. And I kind of just always felt like I wasn't going to take the next steps with IVF or anything. Right. I just felt like that was right for us.
Yeah.
And so when we got pregnant with Poppy, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
Okay. So the same thing happened with us this time. Josh is about to go off to hockey. He says, why don't we take a test? I'm not mentally prepared for this really, but I'm like, whatever, let's just do it. And lo and behold, positive.
Yeah.
What? And for funny context, same symptom, okay?
Yeah.
I hadn't missed my period, nothing else. Smashed a bag of chips. Josh was like,
you're pregnant.
Okay, this is it.
That's funny.
So apparently we've got something rolling. Anyways, so once we found out we were pregnant, Josh had to go off to hockey, and I was kind of left to my own devices that night to think like, okay, so this is happening.
What was going through your brain?
Oh my gosh. It's just like, I think the feeling where you take that test and it doesn't feel real. And especially if you don't have symptoms right away, it's like, is this real? It could be like a false negative. Yeah. So you take more tests, they're all positive. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And so what was going through my head was just, am I emotionally prepared for this? Because it wasn't long ago that I was literally saying to my mom, I think I'm done with one. I don't think I'm mentally prepared or emotionally capable to handle the like stress and the load of children. I'm still very much a child inside. I just feel like there's a lot of things I have to learn and develop.
Yeah.
to be able to raise my children in the way that I want to raise them.
Yeah.
And so when that positive came up, I was just asking myself, how do I learn more? How do I like work on myself more so that when the stresses of having 2 kids comes, that I'm kind of able to handle that and I'm not just creating more damage. Not that I'm, intentionally creating damage.
What do you mean by damage?
Well, I think a lot of moms can relate to just how much emotional regulation is needed to deal with kids, especially once any age, but I'm finding for myself the emotional regulation with a somewhat conscious toddler is challenging because now she's understanding my reactions and she's starting to talk too. So it's like if I say something, is that going to come right out of her mouth? And so I'm just I'm at that stage where I'm like, oh crap, like she's really picking things up for me. And I don't want to have to undo, any of my reactions and like having to teach her how to handle like frustration tolerance or like, things that happen to all of us. Yeah. That we need to start learning these regulation skills early so that as our lives carry on, we're not, again, undoing all that as we become adults, which is harder, I think.
So do you have anything you're currently working through that you would put in the category of expanding your ability to regulate?
Yeah. Well, one of the big ones that I'm noticing Poppy copying me on is that what I mentioned, frustration tolerance, where if I go, then she'll immediately go, okay. So let's not immediately get frustrated with things and verbalize. And so honestly, I'm still struggling with like what's working for me. I'm really looking forward to picking up therapy sessions again with my therapist. I'd kind of put that on pause for a bit for no reason other than I was just struggling to schedule it and thought like, I'm doing fine. But now I'm realizing that I need a little bit of help, and that's okay because, you can be aware that things are that needing some help and also be lacking the skills. And so that's where professionals can come in, is they can give you the skills to be able to implement, the awareness plus the practice. Right. And so that's what I'm working on is I'm not finding a practice that's really working for me. A lot of people will say like, oh, take 5 seconds, take a deep breath, or, like list 5 things you're happy for right away, or, I don't know, just like there's a whole laundry list of things. But I'm finding it challenging to stop myself in that moment. So that's where my therapist is going to come in. And so I'll give you an update later on what that looks like.
I'm really curious. That's really interesting. I'd be curious too. Have you ever dug into like somatic therapy?
I haven't, but I've actually heard a lot of it as well.
Yeah. So I did my first, like a couple introduction levels to breathwork facilitation. Yeah. Super interesting. Super interesting.
Well, because it's so deep, like your nervous system.
Yeah. Like getting into the nervous system and then just like what comes up when you're doing like a breathwork session, like receiving a breathwork session or participating, whatever. Yeah. Like what has come up for me in those sessions is crazy, and it's also crazy how it's just like resolved after.
Wow.
How
did the resolution feel afterwards? Like, what did you feel like changed?
I felt like I was more in my body.
Ooh. See, I think that might be useful for me because I think there's a lot of things that are deeper. Yep. And so the like consciousness, this is where some people kind of talk about like talk therapy and how it's like not helpful for everybody, because a lot of people can be, again, conscious and like think through things, but can't practice. And like a lot of those people who struggle with talk therapy would probably benefit from somatic therapy or something similar because it's actually feeling your feelings and learning how to connect with your body and the nervous system. And I totally think that sounds valuable to me.
Yeah. Because you've also been struggling a little bit of prenatal depression.
I have.
So can you share with us a little bit what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So this is, again, something that I, especially now looking back, realized it really did impact me during Poppy's pregnancy as well. And more so in that it just like takes the color out of things. And I kind of feel like I just retreat into myself. And so it's different in this pregnancy because I'm not working and I'm not, being out of the house with people and kind of masking a little bit. I talk a little bit about that on my social media, on my Instagram, about how, just being out, you kind of take on the emotions of other people, I think.
Yeah.
And for me, that was valuable because then I was getting out of my head and I was doing other things.
Right.
But with being a stay-at-home mom now with Poppy, I struggle to do the tasks that are now my day-to-day, right? So I'm at home. I'm just like taking care of Poppy and the house. And I'm struggling to get off the couch is really the biggest thing as I wake up. And I'm not like excited for the day.
Right.
And I'm also not excited for like sleep. It's weird. I'm excited to sleep because it's just like a break.
Right.
But it's not like something rejuvenating or restful for me. I feel like I wake up and I'm just like another day. I'm waiting for nap time, but not for any particular reason, just because then it's a break, you know? And so that's been a struggle to me to feel like a bit of loss because I felt like I was in a bit of a season with Poppy that I was starting to really enjoy. Right. I mean, I would say that I've enjoyed a lot of seasons with Poppy and I've really enjoyed being a stay-at-home mom. But especially with this newfound independence and like our communication has kind of stepped up a little bit and that's been really fun. And so I think back to your original question, when I found out I was pregnant with our second, that was something that really hit me was, but I was just starting to hit my stride with Poppy and with Motherhood and with this podcast and all these things that were bringing me joy. And so now to look forward to my 2025 and not really know what that looks like because having experienced pregnancy before and knowing how much it really impacts me, I kind of felt like all of my 2025 is going to be pregnancy and then the postpartum trenches. And so it was really hard. It was definitely that grief phase for me, for sure.
Do you find it difficult to not always be doing something?
That's an interesting question because I don't feel like I do, but I also recognize that I experience a lot of shame when I don't do. I think especially as a stay-at-home mom, you're expected to be doing because the product of your doing is, you know, meals are made, floors are clean, laundry is done, that sort of thing. Whereas when you are at work, you know, you are getting things done by deadlines and you're getting paid and emails are sent and you kind of have more of a to-do list that is a little more like finalized and stay-at-home momming, it just like is perpetual, you know? And so especially with busy toddler, if you're not constantly doing, things are just constantly being undone. And so at the end of the day, if you've had a really rough day, as I've had, especially with my depression, if I've let myself sit for several hours at a time and kind of just helped Poppy stay busy or whatever, then everything else has kind of run amok. And it's left me feeling like I've done nothing and I have nothing to show for it. And then there's that guilt and shame for I haven't been able to keep up with the things that I wish I could during the season. And I will give major props to Josh because he'll come in and not give me any grief whatsoever. He'll pick things up and say, thank you for baking our baby and, you know, take care of Poppy. And he's so gracious.
Good man.
So I wish that for every pregnant mom. That's really just like the biggest thing you need is you need to give yourself grace and you need to be able to receive grace from other people. So yeah, to wrap up your question, I think I must struggle with not doing. I do. I guess we'll answer it with just like confirmation that yes, I struggle. Yeah. I'm just curious to see if maybe your 2025 calling is to like be okay being like introspective. Oh, you know what? It's interesting that you say that too, because I had a mom reach out to me on Instagram because I'd posted on my stories, you know, I'm struggling with my 2025. What is it going to look like? What are some things that you're focusing on? And this lovely mom reached back out to me. And we don't have a very close relationship. I don't think I even know her in person. But she reached out and shared a little bit what she's focusing on. She's expecting her fourth baby, actually, which is huge. And she said one of her callings for 2025 is to be more present and to allow that slow down. Especially postpartum. She was saying that she wants to be able to kind of like relinquish that control of not knowing like what those newborn days are going to look like or what the flow is going to feel like with the new dynamic. And I just was like, you know what? I thanked her because I said, that actually sounds like something I could wrap my head around.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what? I can let myself be, you know? And so whether it be in this current season where I'm pregnant and suffering, hopefully not the whole time.
Yeah.
We're nearing the end of the first trimester, so fingers crossed. But yeah, whether it's right now and I'm just kind of allowing myself to be present with Poppy when I can and rest when I can and lean on other people. That was one thing that I felt was valuable this time around, was to share my experiences fairly early so that I could lean on others and allow them to step up.
Yeah.
So that season, and then obviously postpartum season when, you know, you just kind of have to let that be. And I think that's where a lot of peace can come from in the postpartum, because I think from other people's experiences that I've heard, it's when you've tried to push too far or kind of put on show that you can do more, that's when people end up having some regrets, I've noticed. So can you relate?
Over here.
I mean, to be fair, you were kind of like thrown into a bit of a rough postpartum as it was, but...
Well, I think for me, going back to not knowing how to not do, I think we talked about this in the identity episode that we need to re-record, but for me, when COVID hit in 2020, I like threw myself into work, you know, call me a workaholic, but I definitely was using work to numb out feelings, you know? Yeah. And so fast forward to 2023 in June when Arden was born, I was still supposed to work the day I went into labor because he came a month early, right? People are like, what do you mean you were supposed to work the day you gave birth? He came at 36 weeks. Like, lots of people work up to 38 weeks and give birth at 40 and just take 2 weeks off. So anyways, that was my last shift and I missed it.
Brutal.
But yeah, so it was a pretty jarring, like, going from working every day to not working at all, to the point the girl who took over my position called me 5 days postpartum to ask a question or something. And she goes, how's life? And I respond, I'm way better than managing a dance studio.
When inside your head, you're probably like,
no, I was being dead serious in that moment.
Good.
I was like, raising a brand new infant baby postpartum C-section is way less stressful than managing what I was managing.
That's crazy. So you really were invested in your work before.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
And like, maybe a little entangled in it as well. Yeah. But I definitely felt like that's where my postpartum depression was coming from. It was like, I don't have anything to do except be at home with this baby and alone with my own thoughts. And so I think a lot of the year 2 was like processing unprocessed trauma that I was using work to numb out from.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 3 years. Yeah. 3.5 years.
So true.
Right? So some of those things are really uncomfortable to be in. But I think the only way through depressive feelings is sometimes just to be in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to explore a little bit more, because even I've never been on antidepressants. And then I was talking to a friend about what it looks like to be on them. And the way she was explaining it to me sounded really appealing. And I was like, you know what, actually, maybe I should think about this. And today we actually went to our midwives for the first checkup with our baby 2. And, you know, just kind of talking through how I'm doing. And our midwife suggested, she's like, you know what, like, take it as it comes. But if you feel like there's more bad days than good days, antidepressants could be an option for you. Yeah. And just the way she stated it that way, where if it was more bad days than good days, I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I give myself a bit of a hand up? Because I feel like that's been the case. Yeah. And I've been trying really hard to do what I can to boost myself out of the worst states of it. Yeah. But it was, just kind of like a nod to saying, like, it's not bad for you. It's not shameful. It's can be just a season, you know, you can try it or whatever. And I just really appreciated that from her. That was just, it wasn't pressure, but it was a go ahead. You know, like, this is what you can expect. And so, I'm looking forward to talking with my therapist, like I mentioned, and kind of seeing what what else we can do to manage, especially because when I was pregnant with Poppy, I was very concerned with having postpartum depression.
Right.
Being that, obviously, if you have prenatal depression, it's a bit of a comorbidity to continue having it afterwards, right? So that was a big concern for me. Luckily, I don't know what the factors were in this, but luckily I didn't experience postpartum depression with Poppy. I did have typical like baby blues for maybe like a week, second week postpartum, but again, lots of factors involved with that. Like I was really sick. I got really sick that week, and there was like some other things going on. But yeah, that's definitely a concern again for me this time around, especially. I just feel like the stakes are raised, right? With
you have a toddler, right?
2 kids.
And so it's like nap when baby naps. Well,
yeah,
it's not really an option.
Exactly. So not really knowing what that season is going to look like. You know, I can ask all the questions from other moms, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just I have to stay present. I have to be where I am right now and allow the feelings, because if I get too ahead of myself, then that's where it can get really debilitating. Yeah. And I just feel like, why am I doing this to myself? You know?
Yeah.
And I've explained to a friend also that it feels a little bit like, I almost feel a little bit, I almost feel like a little bit of shame for being depressed while pregnant, because it's like, well, do you know how babies are made? You know, I almost feel like a reckless teenager. Like, well, if you did this to yourself, you should be prepared for how you feel, which is totally toxic.
Okay, but can we also talk about your hormones?
Oh, amen.
And the fact that, like, that's there's a whole cocktail of things happening in your body that you're not in control of.
Yes. It makes perfect sense. That
it makes perfect sense that you're feeling insane.
Yes. And I'm glad that you addressed that, because we forget about it all the time. At least I do. I forget
we're
that,
not
like,
really
women...
taught. I mean, we're like Science 20, like grade 11 science. Yeah. We kind of go through it, but I deleted it through my brain, and I'm probably like, do you know what I'm saying? We're not educated. Yeah. It's not part of our daily conversation. Mm-hmm. I feel like the extent of it is, oh, my wife's pregnant, like, better watch out from her, you know?
It's kind of turned into a bit of a joke. I totally agree. And I think a bit of our modernized society has, like, grouped in women and men to be able to, like, oh, you're all functioning at the same rate. You're all doing the same things, you know. Mm-hmm. You should be able to carry on with your lives.
Well, in our society, our society was not set up like this up until, I mean, if you go back to hunter-gatherer days, the women were typically in charge of child rearing, cooking, cleaning, maybe picking berries. I don't know. I didn't live back then. And the men were in charge of going out and providing, like, safety and security and food, right? Mm-hmm. Like going out and hunting and whatever. Yeah. And so, but we lived in villages. Yeah. So you and I would share these tasks. Exactly. We wouldn't try to take on everything ourselves. And the rest of the women would understand, like, oh, you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. This is a time for you to be introspective and to be restful and to not be cooking and cleaning and chasing children around. And that's right. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And in our day and age, going out and hunting as well. Yeah. Like, let's be real. Like, most women are still expected to go to work every day. Like, nothing's wrong. Work the 9 to 5. Yeah. Like, our biology is not built for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to talk to another professional about this, because even in, like, the health and fitness world, there's been a lot of, you know, some trends about, like, cycle.
I've been kind of digging into this a little bit.
Yeah, like, now I've totally lost the phrasing, but...
It's, like, different kinds of workouts you should be doing in alignment with where you are in your, like, 28-day cycle.
Yeah, exactly. I guess just cycle tracking. I don't know. Besides cycle tracking, but, like, moving with the ebb and flow of your biology during that time. Yeah. And so... which makes sense to me, but I have no idea what the science is behind that. Admittedly, I haven't done a lot of research behind it. I just thought it was an interesting concept.
It kind of makes sense in theory, just basic level without knowing the science.
Well, like, and even if to take out, like, the health and fitness aspect, like gym routines out of it, if we're to take just our basic day-to-day into account, and like how our moods are going to be doing, how our like what our nutrition needs are going to be, what our rest needs are going to be, all that makes total sense to be aware of it. And so again, just to bring this back, pregnancy and postpartum, like all the things are such a long process where your hormones are just going through this wackadoodle roller coaster. To understand that and give yourself grace just by purely understanding physiologically you're going through crap, it makes all the difference.
Well, and you're still breastfeeding Poppy too.
Oh my gosh, and I'm still breastfeeding Poppy.
Because when you stop breastfeeding, your hormones do another crazy thing, but you're still breastfeeding. So most people,
I'm so nervous.
They say their bodies don't reset from pregnancy until 2 years postpartum. And you didn't even hit the reset mark. So you're just like starting back in this crazy loop-de-loop-de-doo.
Yeah, I'm admittedly a little bit nervous about that. I was intending to wean Poppy before getting pregnant again. Obviously didn't happen. And now that we're here, I have another friend who just had her second baby, and she's just warning me, do it before like time gets away from you, because you don't want to get stuck nursing a toddler and a baby, which if that's your choice, that's your choice, and it works for a lot of people. But I know for myself, if I'm going to be experiencing like a hard drop, which is common, like a hard a lot of people experience like a depression episode or like season.
And I mean, you might not though, because you're pregnant, right? Like, I mean, I'm no scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand the
if I'm already low, is it going to get lower, or is it just going to maintain?
Maybe it'll push you back up. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? All I know is maybe somebody not hanging off my nipples might be a good thing for me.
It was a really good thing for me. I was sad about it for like a week and a half, and now I am so grateful that I don't have to share my body with another human. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's right. I mean, I'll be sharing one way or another, but you know.
I know. Maybe share with one and not two, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, I think we are, like, I think Poppy's ready. I think she's in a season where if we were to start cutting back, and we have started cutting back, that she is doing okay with that. And there's been times where, you know, if I've been out for the night, whatever, she hasn't received a feed before bed, like, she's totally fine. It's not because she needs it. It's literally just a
comfort thing.
A comfort thing for both of us at this point. And maybe part of that is maybe I'm having a hard time letting go of that one-on-one season and being like, oh, you're going to be like this grown-up looking toddler when this baby shows up, and we're going to be referring to this new baby as the baby, and you're going to be the toddler. And so maybe part of it is just me wrapping my head around the fact that that season for us is changing. And so, that's a whole other layer to it. That
do you feel emotional about that?
I think now that I'm saying that, I think I am.
The baby.
Yeah, I think I am. Especially going into our midwife's appointment today, you know, and our midwife says, "Oh, she's so big. Oh, you're talking so well." And I'm just looking at her, and she's holding her little baby doll, and I'm like, oh, she is getting big, and like she is, but she's still so little. I was talking to her about it today. I was like, you're still my baby, but you are getting bigger. There's going to be a smaller baby. She doesn't understand this, but I'm just like talking
I mean, you
with
think
her.
she doesn't understand it.
That's true.
But I think they understand a lot more than you think they do. I have a video of when I was pregnant. I was subbing a class of toddlers, and they were, age 2 to 3 maybe. And there's a video, and I like shot it this way so you can just see their little hands, but they're like, baby, 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 and they're like poking my belly. They understand.
That's true, because that being said, there was one time a couple days ago where Poppy was pointing at her belly and she was saying baby, and I was like, I don't remember ever, like, I didn't explicitly say that there was a baby in my belly to her at any point. So that must have just been like contextually, she just picked things up from me and Josh, which is whack to me. I think another hard thing for me to recognize that she's.
I think they know more than we give them credit for.
Yeah. So it's definitely been a mental roller coaster, but hearing the heartbeat on the Doppler today definitely made it feel a lot more real. And I was like, you know, I can imagine this. I think I can. And Poppy has been so good. Like I mentioned with her baby dolls. The cutest thing ever. Like, she's just so affectionate. She's going to be a good big sister. I think so.
She's a little bit of like even when Arden's here, she's like, trying to like tell him what to do.
She's just gonna be a mini Sarah. I was the oldest, and I was just like, let's go.
Yeah,
it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like the more I'm able to think about it, and the more it feels real. Pregnancy symptoms are not great, but they've been worse. Like I felt much worse off with Poppy. So I think, I think we're getting through it the best way we can right now. And like I mentioned, just relying on the people that I know can support me, my professional help as well as my personal help. It's been really amazing to be able to, especially share it as early as I did. I shared it online at 10 weeks, but I shared it with a handful of friends before that. I shared it with you earlier. And it's been just nice to not have to feel like I have to pretend. I think that's one of the biggest weights on pregnant moms' shoulders is that, as soon as that positive test comes up, your brain just explodes a little bit. And your whole life changes. And nobody knows except for you and possibly your partner. And then, the physical sometimes come into play, and it's just a lot that you have to carry. And so that's been something that I've realized, and other moms have contacted me about this as well, just expressing gratitude and almost like a permission to shift that narrative that like you have to keep it to yourself. I understand the reasoning why people do, especially, and I want to tread lightly here because I want to be considerate, because I know so many women have had miscarriages and it's been really tough, especially if you have shared it publicly. That being said, personally, my decision was to share it because whether this baby continues to thrive or if I suffer a miscarriage, I know that my people need to know. And I won't, like, it just doesn't matter to me. I need my people to know, and that's my village, like you referenced earlier. So, it's been really interesting to shift that perspective for a lot of people, and just be like, it's okay. It's okay that I'm not trying to be secretive, and it's okay.
I think as someone who has experienced a miscarriage, I was grateful that my people knew before. I found out I was pregnant at 4 weeks and then lost the baby at 6 weeks. And like, it was good for me that people knew because it's almost more awkward to approach someone and say, hey, I was pregnant. Now I'm not. Now I'm sad about it. Kind of gives them whiplash. Like worse whiplash than like having known you were pregnant for 2 weeks and then finding out you lost the baby and then having to like process that with you, I think I saw a mom post a reel one time on Instagram about it being just a chemical pregnancy, and they kind of had an audio over top of it where it's like, it's not your fault, and she was just like, I know, no, it's not your fault, I know, it's not your fault, I know. And then it was kind of just like her having to come to realization that the things that she was going through were just hard, and people had to be there, and it was okay that even if the marriage, like it doesn't matter how far along you are, a miscarriage is hard on you, and so and it's hard on like emotionally, it's hard, and it's also really hard physiologically too, because your hormones go through this crazy thing, and you're upset, and you don't know why you're upset. You lose a lot of blood, and like it's hard for your body to recover. You're kind of like postpartum without being postpartum. Do you know what I'm saying?
Tragic. Yeah.
Because your body's like going through this like hormonal whiplash that you're like, how do I? I'm just crying. I don't know why I'm crying. Like
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And that's just exactly it. That's what I told my husband when I said I want to share this publicly, because it just felt so personal to me. But also personal to like our mission here at Smashed Oranges, which is we want to empower women and say like your motherhood is going to look unique to you. It's your experience, not anybody else's. And so your choice to share as early, as late as you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable and empowered. But at the end of the day, it's to give you the most support and help you feel ready to step into whatever chapter lays in front of you. So
I also think too that there is something maybe slightly different too between like sharing publicly and then sharing like with your
Yeah, with your close circle.
With your like close circle,
Totally.
like to call
Totally.
a friend versus posting to Instagram. You
Yes.
know, like I could totally, like for me, when I found out I was pregnant with Arden, I didn't post until after that 12-week mark, but everybody that was in my inner circle knew immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, that's interesting because I did share, like I said, with a couple of close people first.
Yeah.
But I also felt that more people needed to hear this.
Yeah.
Right? That more people needed almost, like I said, almost like a permission. But just to say, like, because I know I've seen a lot more content creators posting earlier pregnancies, and that gave me a bit of confidence, right? And so, I think just the more we normalize a ton of things, right? Like everything we talk about on Smashed Oranges, the more we normalize it, the more women can feel comfortable and feel like, okay, we're all experiencing this together, and we can create this bit of a bond and shared experience, or we're different experiences, you know, just create that community that we're all really needing. So it's a ride, but I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody, and I appreciate you, Maddie, for being one of the first people to know, and genuinely I really did appreciate how excited you were for us, because at that moment I wasn't sure how I felt. So your excitement and your support has meant a lot, and so I want to thank you for that. Thank you guys. Thanks so much for joining. Leave a like, comment. We already asked you to subscribe, so hopefully you did that already.
Have a good day, guys.
Okay, thanks. Much love. Bye.